It's time for the No Nonsense Roundtable. Insights to capture your imagination from people you know and people you'd like to know about. Each week, a different guest from a different walk of life. Now, here is the host of the No Nonsense Roundtable, Dom Genova.
Well, welcome everybody to another edition of the No Nonsense Roundtable. I'm Dom Genova, your host, every Saturday right here on News Radio WHAM 1180. And like I like to remind everybody, our past shows are on NoNonsenseRoundtable.com, either as iHeart Podcasts or YouTubes. And if the intent of my show is to illustrate people that you know and you like to know more about, or people you may not know and should know, I have somebody who's probably more in the latter category today. His name is Jack Allocco, a Rochester native, lives in L.A. now for good reason. And getting to the short form, he is a fellow who has written and produced music that you certainly have heard, and has Emmys, 20 nominations, and 10 statues so far. Is that correct? Do you have more than that since this article was published?
At the moment, I have 11 Emmys, 11 wins, yes.
And a Rochester guy.
But yes, very, very lucky, by the way. Very blessed, I consider myself, yeah.
Yeah, so tell me, I was reading in your biography that you started taking guitar lessons at 4 years old. Is that true?
Yeah. My mother was, she was kind of a stage mom, and she encouraged me to do all that. I actually started lessons right across the street from the Eastern School of Music. There was a music store there, and studied with a guy named Don Ames, who passed away a long time ago. But I started taking lessons and quit several times, to play baseball or something else that I was interested in, and then always went back to it. So it wasn't a straight line, is what I'm trying to say. It wasn't a straight line at all. But I was interested from the beginning. And I always joked that if my mother passed away when I was pretty young, and I always kind of joked that if my mom had lived, I'd have Tom Cruise's career right now. I tell you what, but. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. But, my mom was a big influence, yeah.
Now, she was a big band singer, right?
Yeah, my mom sang with a big band. Her brother, Larry, his name was Larry Caton. He had a big band. He played saxophone, and all well before my time. But, my mom was a singer and kind of had music in the house. My dad was never real excited about the whole prospect. He thought it was a very risky way to make a living, but he kind of tolerated it, and and kind of one thing led to another. So again, I've been if I knew how hard it was, I wouldn't have tried. But anyway, it's I just kind of went for it.
So what did you want to do? I love the question. What did you want to do when you were 10 years old?
I actually, I kind of grew up watching television, of course, in the 1950s. And I knew every theme on every show. I could sing it for you. I could kind of pick it out on the piano. Music was always very, very important to me, and so I wanted to be. I'll tell you the truth. From a very young age, I don't know about 10, but certainly as a teenager, I wanted to write music for movies and television, and I had no idea how to do it, none. And kind of grew up playing in bands all over Rochester. We had a band, the We Four, that had some success. We had a record make the charts back in the day. And, we played everywhere you could imagine around Rochester and the surrounding area. And even to the point where the We Four would open for national groups like the Turtles or the Outsiders would come to Rochester, and we'd kind of be the opening act. So I got to meet a lot of people back in the day, even as a teenager. And that's kind of what I always wanted to do. So that's what I pursued.
So you had a feel for it. I remember when I was a little boy, I'm smiling now because I used to take, when there's a commercial for peanut butter, I would go into the cabinet, take the peanut butter and hold the peanut butter up to the television screen and start reciting what the guy was advertising. It sounds like similar to that. You're listening to these themes, but the themes have to give you some type of inspiration about emotions and what it's trying to accomplish and whatever. I mean, even at that young age, you caught that, right?
Oh yeah, a lot. And back then there was westerns were big, a lot of westerns, and kind of big sweeping themes. Big orchestral stuff back then. And it influenced me. I grew up loving that kind of music, big cinematic kind of sounds, full orchestra. And, it wasn't until much later that I kind of learned how to do that. I had a great music teacher I went to Bishop Kearney High School, and I had Ray Shaheen, who was a brilliant musician, and he taught me a lot, taught me how to read music, actually. I mean, when I was taking guitar lessons, I would fake it. I'd memorize it and pretend I was reading the sheet, which I wasn't, and because I'd take the easy way out, I'd memorize it. I could hear it and pretty much play it back. But anyway, Ray Shaheen taught me how to read. I played in the pit orchestra at Bishop Kearney for shows, for musicals and so on that the high school would do. And then actually, I went to St. John Fisher. I have a degree in accounting, if you can believe that. I have a degree in accounting from John Fisher. Yeah, and at the same time, my dad, again, he wasn't that wild about the music thing and thought you have to go to college and get a job. So I was going to become a CPA. And at the same time, I was taking music electives over at Nazareth Nazareth College, because John Fisher didn't have music. And anyway, I graduated in 3 years out of Fisher. I kind of took extra loads, summers and so on. And then I take a lot of music electives, and then I finally had enough credits to kind of finish a music degree. So I got 2 degrees simultaneously from 2 different colleges back in the 70s. And I can remember being on receiving my diploma a week apart from Fisher and Nazareth, and same kind of faculty was up on the stage from Fisher and Nazareth, and they're looking at me like, haven't I just seen you? Like, where did you come? Like, anyway, they looked confused. Nobody had figured out how I did that, but I actually graduated from both of them the same year. And then I went to the University of Miami down in Florida, working on a master's degree, which I never finished, regrettably. I kind of ran out of money, and I went on the road and to make a living, and so I never did finish the master's, which I kind of regret. But I studied with a lot of people privately since then. When I got out here, I studied with some great composers, and they taught me so much about the business and so on. But it was always a journey, always trying to learn from somebody, always trying to figure out what was going on, or I'd hear something, I didn't know what that was, I'd ask. And I found that most musicians are very, happy to help you out, as I am today with young guys that come out here, and I'm always happy to meet with them. I'm always happy to show them around, buy them a cup of coffee, and what are you doing? What's the dream? I always ask them, what's the dream? What are you guys trying to do? And I'm always happy to help, because that was my experience, and it's invaluable. It's invaluable. So, this to now, kind of footnote, I'm on the board of Nazareth College. I'm a trustee. I have been for about 13 years, I think, and I love the music department and the students over there, and I try to help them out in every way I can. So that's kind of my journey.
Yeah, and we're about ready to head into a break. But when we come back, I want to talk about that creative process that you have that is so unique. And we're going to talk about some of the music that people are going to absolutely 100% recognize when they hear it. And we're going to go out with one of these. Well, you're back listening to the No Nonsense Roundtable. We're here with Jack Allocco, winner of so many Emmys. Do you have a shelf that can actually hold these many Emmys? You got
no.
You have 11 of them.
No, I don't. I want to tell you a quick story, if I may.
Sure, go ahead.
One year they sent me one by mistake. I didn't win. And they're very fussy about that, by the way. The Academy is very fussy. So I called the guy in New York, and I said, I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but you guys sent me an Emmy. I didn't win. Oh, so they said, oh, my God, put it back in the box. We'll have somebody there within the hour. We'll have a messenger. So I put it back, and they picked it up, and it went back to New York. But so about a week later, they called me from the Academy, and they said, we're sitting around here, and we're all marveling what an honest guy you are. I mean, it was really, I said, well, sure, I didn't win it. doesn't mean anything if you don't win it. And they said, well, we just really marvel at what an honest guy you are. So I'll tell you how honest I am. If someone asks me how many Emmys I've won, I'm going to say 11. If they ask me how many I've received, I'm going to say 12. So it didn't.
I like that.
That's the truth, Anyway, but I've been very lucky in that area.
Well, and the award comes from your peers.
Yes. Well, that's the nice thing. The only ones who can vote are other composers in my category. So dramatic, serial. Like Young and the Restless, Bold and Beautiful are two that I happen to do a lot of, and it has to be other composers. In that, pretty much in that space. So it's your peers. Yeah, it's your peers. And that makes it kind of satisfying.
And movies too, right?
Yeah. I've done a few movies. Mostly I get kind of, they kind of put you in a category out here. And my thing has been television, which, sometimes I wish I had the opportunity to do more feature films. But, I got thank God, so much work on television. I kind of was always busy and so on. And I did do some work on the Tom Cruise film, The Firm. Mm-hmm. There's some music in there that I did. And I got screen credit, which is a kick. When you're sitting in a big theater and the music's loud and your name rolls up on the crawl, that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
I have to say. But yeah, so I've been kind of stereotyped, I guess you'd say, in television, but no regrets. I've been, like I say, I'm considering myself blessed.
Well, I was having a conversation, and I think this is going to be the third time I mentioned this, with Jeff Tyzik. And we were talking about people who have directions in their life and to sort of be in an environment that you love. If you love the theater, you love music, you love whatever it is, you be in the environment that you love, and you'll find that your life has some interest to it. It sounds like you found that. Yeah,
absolutely. And I don't even know what I would do without that.
Right.
It kind of gives you purpose. It gives you direction. And I think, in my line of work, I think you're pretty much as good as the last thing you've done. Mm-hmm. So you're always trying to you hit it out of the park. I mean, every time you get up, you want to please everybody. You want them to love it. You want them to love your music like a parent would want people to love their child, And when somebody doesn't like something you've created, which happens, by the way, it's always, damn, but we survive and move on. But, it gives you purpose. It gives you direction. It gives you a reason to keep trying. And, and I've been doing this a long time. I've been at CBS television for 35 years, and that's quite a run. And, I've had an hour and a half of network television for many, many years. Most people have an hour or a half hour a week. Mm-hmm. I had an hour and a half a day.
Right.
For 35 years. And, so I'm very grateful for that. And, it's kind of I don't think about it a lot, and I really just want to keep going. I don't think I've written my best stuff yet. I really think I've got more to do. I'm anxious to I love the challenge.
That's a wonderful thought. The best is yet to come.
Yeah, I believe that. And as soon as I stop believing that, I'm going to be in trouble, I'm pretty sure.
Well, I'm looking, I have to do a little bit of show prep here, but with South Bay, I guess that's a magazine out by you. And it says, its underscore, as it is called, is designed to enhance whatever the dramatic intention of the scene is, be it tension, romance, angst, danger, sex, etc.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that? I mean, what is the hallmark of something for romance or sex or danger or angst or tension?
Oh, well, there's certain
cues.
Sounds, intervals of music that are more dissonant or consonant, if you follow me.
Okay.
So when you're doing danger or angst or that kind of, and by the way, television, they believe tension is the most interesting emotion, not love, believe it or not. They love tension because it's tune in tomorrow to see how it's going to turn out, if you follow me.
Okay.
And very, very little resolution. I mean, they'll go, storyline will go forever till they make a resolution. Somebody marry somebody or something, and of course then that doesn't work out because they find tension more interesting. But yeah, musically, I think we all know when a piece of music is sad. I mean, it's an interesting thing. I've been around the world. Music, everybody everywhere that I've been, they understand when a piece of music is sad. They got it right away. Or if it's tense or energetic, a chase scene, for instance, or something, romance, sex, they understand that immediately. So, I mean, those things are kind of widely understood in the music as a language, so to speak. I think people get that.
Yeah, and you enlightened me to a concept. The language is different in different countries, but the emotions that you get from the music is pretty much the same.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, I've recorded in London a lot. I've recorded in Prague. And I remember one time in Prague, I had an interpreter because the orchestra didn't understand English, and I had an interpreter, so I was conducting the orchestra, which, by the way, I love to conduct. I was conducting the orchestra. I always did my own conducting on everything, and I'd make a thing like, please tell the orchestra, bar 82, tacit the symbol, blah, 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 and then, and make it, and I give them a musical term, like, and make it subito piano, and it's going to be con la voce or something, which of course are all Italian. And the interpreter looks at me and she goes, I don't know how to say that. I said, no, they got that. They don't even have to translate that. They understand what I'm going for here. So anyway, the musicians, even in Prague, when they didn't speak a word of English, they got the intention of the music. They got it right away. So never a problem. It's a universal language. Everybody gets it.
With awards, you had 13 consecutive ASCAP awards too.
Yeah, I had 13 years in a row. I had the most performed main title and underscore. Underscore is all the dramatic stuff in the background. The main title is, of course, the theme of the opening of the show, and that was pretty much had to do with The Bold and the Beautiful. I Bold and Beautiful was I wrote that theme that's still playing today. So, I had 13 years in a row. Yeah.
Well, with that, we are about ready to head into another break. And I want to talk to you about something that this article said your big break was. And I don't think people are really going to recognize what this is. And
okay.
And
I might not either.
It might be a surprise. And we'll see you right after this news break. Well, welcome back. You're listening to the No Nonsense Roundtable. I'm talking to Jack Allocco today, a prestigious career in the music business, television, and has so many Emmys, they say, that he can't find a shelf that is strong enough to hold them, which is wonderful. Rochester guy, born and raised in Rochester. Now, how was your life in Rochester as a kid? Where'd you go to grammar school? Where'd you go to high school?
Okay, I grew up on Clifford Avenue.
Okay.
Clifford Avenue, almost Rondequoit, but not quite. And I went to St. Ambrose School.
Oh, okay.
And grammar school. And then I went to Bishop Kearney High School, and then St. John Fisher and Nazareth College, as I mentioned before. So I've had like 16 years of Catholic education, which I'm not sure if it benefited me.
Well, I can relate to that too. I went to a Catholic grammar school, high school, and college, and it wasn't until I got out that I realized that there were like Presbyterians in the world. So
there you go.
So you started off with a guitar at the age of 4 and started in a household that your mother at least encouraged the music because she was a big band player. So what is the first paid gig that you got? When's the first time you realized that you could actually make money and support yourself?
Yeah, I mean, well, one of them that stands out, I don't know if it was exactly the first, but one of the first was there was a cider mill in Webster, New York, Mayor's Cider Mill.
Okay.
I actually played for a grape stomping contest. How about that? that takes me back.
Grape stomping reminds you of Lucille Ball.
Yeah, exactly. It was like that, and so there was that, and again, I I was playing with older people. When I was a teenager, I played with older guys, and we played weddings and bowling alleys and bar mitzvahs, I guess, and the Battle of the Bands a few times in Rochester, which I always lost, by the way. I never won.
Okay.
And that's okay. And yeah, so I don't know if it's the one you're referring to, but a lot of stuff back then. A lot of those kind of casual. They call them casuals when you're playing for an event like that, a wedding or something, and the musicians actually behind their back call them casualties. I got a casualty Saturday night. And we all know what they mean.
So let me say two words to you, and you comment on this. The Hager twins, was it Hager twins or Hager twins?
Hager, yeah,
Hager twins.
Yeah,
could you please explain how the Hager twins have affected your career, your life? Yeah,
well, they were wild boys, twins. Obviously, they were kind of like the Marx Brothers. They were pretty zany, but they were on a television show called Hee Haw back then, which ran for 20-something years. But I was sitting in a coffee shop. This is a typical Hollywood story. I was sitting in a coffee shop in Hollywood, Studio City in the Valley, Los Angeles. And John Hager was sitting at the bar. I knew he was, and I had kind of sensed right away that celebrities don't really like being noticed. They just rather, because they feel you're a crazy person, or fans can be crazy or whatever. So I knew who he was, but I sat at the counter and he looked at me and says, "How you doing?" I said, "Great." He was very friendly, and he said, "What do you do?" And I said, "Well, I'm a guitar player. I'm new in town." And he said, I said, "What do you do?" Although I knew, I pretended I didn't. And he said, "Oh, my brother and I sing." I said, "Oh, that's great." And he said, "Yeah, we're on this TV show." And he said, by the way, he said, "Do you know how to write down music on paper? Like if I gave you a tape, could you write down, because we're traveling and we want to pick up a band wherever we go. We don't want to carry a band anymore. Can you write our music down for me?" And I said, "Yeah." So I gave him my number, and he never called me. I mean, a year went by. I swear, a year went by. He calls me a year later, and he said, "I don't know if you remember me, but we're doing the Merv Griffin show," which was a big show back then.
Yeah.
Network. He said, "We're doing Merv Griffin on Friday. Can you write 2 arrangements for my brother and I?" And I said, "Well, sure. What songs you want to do?" And I remember one of them was "Let Your Love Flow," the Bellamy Brothers, and something else. And I said, "Well, are we going to get together and set a key?" No. I said, "Okay, really?" Yeah. He said, "No, just meet us at the Merv Griffin Theater on Vine at noon on Friday." And so I wrote up 2 arrangements, of these songs, and I show up at the theater. The brother had never met me. Jim Hager had never met me. And we do a rehearsal, and there's a guitar solo in the middle of this "Let Your Love Flow." So they said to me, "Well, who's going to do the solo?" And I said, "Well, I can do it." Now, you got to understand, they've never seen or anything I've done, or that I can do a damn thing. You know what I mean? So this was kind of, they're taking a risk. I said, "Yeah, I'll do it." And so anyway, after the show, they said, "Well, would you travel with us and, just be our music director, and we'll pick up a band wherever we go. And by the way, we're going to do the television show Hee Haw. We're going to bring you in to do all our songs on Hee Haw." So that was the beginning of probably my first real job, if you follow me. They just took a leap of faith with me, and I worked with them. I think 5-6 years or more, and wonderful time, crazy time. They were crazy fun. Hee Haw was a very popular show back then. It was kind of the country western version of Laugh-In back then, and of course I met all kinds of people in that context. I met Roy Clark and Chet Atkins and, boy, you name it, Dolly Parton, Kenny Rogers, all of them. Everybody did that show. So I was there, and a lot of fun. And it probably started me off literally, in more than just playing gigs, if you follow me. Actually having a TV show or something. That was my first real good job.
Let me ask you a crazy question. Tell me one of the most interesting people that you've met along your career, because you've been in LA. You've been in LA for a long time. Just one person.
Yeah, a long time.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And geez.
Hard to pick, right?
I mean, there's so many. I mean, Trying to think of the one that was back in the day, I did the White House twice. I met Reagan twice. I mean, that was pretty a showstopper there. I met Reagan. With Robert Goulet. I toured as Robert Goulet's music director for some years, and we played in London for royalty at the Palace. That was crazy. I met Chet Atkins, which of course is a hero of mine. I'm trying to think of who else. Everybody from. Oh my God, I'm trying to think out loud here. Fabian. I don't know if you're old enough to remember.
Oh yeah,
Fabian.
I remember Fabian. Sure.
I was his music guy for some years, and I still friends with him. Still friends with Fabian. We still talk. And I go to the Waring Theater there in Rochester, right near Clifford Avenue, and I'd see Fabian in these movies, right? And he was a handsome guy and a singer and a movie star, and then I end up being his friend. It's crazy. I mean, life is so funny.
Yeah.
And now we're good friends. So there you go.
Well, it's amazing how you meet people, and that's what I'm getting from the show is that I would never meet you. I would have never met you if it wasn't for Carla Porta and the way life it makes its turns. And the thing is, this Hager twins thing. I mean, if you weren't there at that time, you wouldn't have taken that path, which wouldn't have gotten you here, which is kind of the craziness of it all, right?
No, it's serendipity, a circumstance. It's funny, that same coffee shop, I remember the day like it was yesterday. I'll tell you how long ago that was. Goldie Hawn walked in with a baby in a stroller. The baby was Kate Hudson. That's how long ago that was. I never forget that. But I've always been, it's kind of like Forrest Gump. I find myself in these situations standing next to somebody like really famous or something, and I go, how the heck did I get here? But here I am. It's crazy.
Yeah, crazy stuff is right. Well, we're about ready to head to another break, and we're going to hear a little bit more of your music on the bumper music right here.
You got it.
Well, welcome back. We're talking to Jack Allocco, a fella that is a Rochester guy living in L.A. now. How long have you lived in L.A., Jack?
Oh, I moved out here in 76.
Okay.
So I've been here since. I did recently spend a year in Nashville just checking it out. Went there for a school year with my kids. We were in Nashville for a year, but we moved back. I never sold my house or rented it or anything here, so I still have a home in Nashville. But I'm back in L.A. and it's kind of where my roots are now.
As a coincidence, the other fellow that was on the show a few months ago that lives in Nashville is Felix Cavalieri. I didn't know.
Oh, sure.
I don't know if you knew that.
Sure.
But we were talking.
Yeah, I know Felix. Yeah.
Oh, he's a good guy. He grew up in Pelham, New York, which is north of New York. I grew up in Glen Cove, which is just east of New York, and it's like we grew up in the same town. You feel like a great guy.
Wow. Yes.
So we're talking about your work, and there's three different pieces of work that you've been involved in that people are going to be very familiar with. One is The Bold and Beautiful, The Young and Restless, and the music that you've done for the movie The Firm. And you listen to, in particular, you look at the music for The Bold and Beautiful, and that has this vibe to it that's completely different than The Young and Restless. Could you kind of explain what you're trying to emote in those two things?
Well, sure. I mean, obviously, it's both shows are about relationships, always about characters and relationships and whatever journey they're on and, the arc of their storyline, if that makes sense. And Young and Restless is more kind of bittersweet. The music is bittersweet. I always say it. It's kind of sad, but not really, and it's optimistic, but not really. And so and Young and Restless, if people take a minute to look at it, the characters are more realistic. There's some people who aren't stunningly beautiful. for instance, on Young and Restless, characters. And now Bold and Beautiful is very glamorous, everybody's quite good looking and statuesque and so on. And it's all about glamour and high fashion, and they like more energy in the music. They like it very energetic. Where a lot of times there's fashion shows incorporated into the storyline where there's upbeat music on the runway for the fashion shows and so on. But again, it's they're both character driven. They want people to relate to these people and actually think they know them, if you believe it or not. They want the fans to know these people like they're friends with them, like their family.
Yeah. And
people watch the show for many, many years because they really have a relationship with these characters.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And now the firm, the music for that is, how would you explain that? I can't come up with.
Well, it's a fact. You know what? I had a small part in that. The main composer, of course, was Dave Grusin, who's a fabulous musician and pianist, and he had created a score. I try to make a long story real short. He created a score that was all piano. It was quite unique for the ever and since. He created a score that was all piano. Well, he got to post-production, and Sidney Pollack was directing. And Sidney Pollack wanted anything but piano music in a couple of these scenes, which was in a restaurant with Tom Cruise and, the other main character there, I'm thinking. Well, anyway, so the music supervisor was named Joel Sill. He calls me and he said, can you do something real quick? Sidney doesn't like couple of the scenes in the movie, and Dave Grusin, at least I was told, is refusing to change anything. You know? I said, okay. So they said, it's totally spec. Write a couple things, record them, get them back to me. You know, like I think I had, I'm not exaggerating, I think I had 2 days to do this, to do a couple pieces of music. And I said, what's the direction? And they said, anything but piano. And they, back in the day, they messengered over a VHS tape. I mean, that's all, you know, VHS tape. So I did I played nylon string guitar, like kind of classical jazz guitar thing. And I sent it back and I heard nothing. And a week went by, and I finally got up to courage, and I called the music supervisor. I said, did Sidney Pollack like the music, or he hated it? What's going on? And he said, hasn't listened to it yet. You know, okay. A week later, when they wanted it, like 2 days. Anyway, that's Hollywood. So he calls me back later that day. He said, Sidney listened to it. He loves it. It's in. You got screen credit, and I think they paid me $5,000, to be honest, for the 2 cues. And so it ends up in the film, and probably Dave Grusin hates me to this day. I'm not sure, but I don't blame him. He had a brilliant score, and it's just Sidney found the piano music in the couple of the scenes confusing, I guess. And so it's one of those opportunities. You just luck, you're in the right place at the right time. You get to call. You know.
You know, I liken that to somebody looking over at Da Vinci, and I don't like that smile all that much. Change
exactly. No, exactly. I mean, if I had, of course, I never met Sidney Pollack, but I would have said, really? I mean, are you sure? Because there's nothing wrong with that, but that's Hollywood.
Yeah.
Hollywood.
Oh, yeah. I can imagine, and egos get involved in it. And what do you want? I don't like green. Well, what do you want? I don't like green.
I've had producers say to me, "Is that a flute in that cue? Is that a flute?" I go, "Yeah," because I hate flutes. That's all. I had no idea. My wife. Okay. Yeah. I don't like flutes. No more flutes.
My ex-wife used to play a flute, and I don't like flutes.
Well, I've had that comment. No, I hate flutes. Oh, I had no idea. I'm sorry. Whatever, whatever. I'm always there to please. Whatever. You don't like flutes? No flutes. We're good.
Before we have only a couple of minutes left, but I like to do some retail at the end of the show, and the retail is talking about you, the Rochester Music Hall of Fame, class of 2019. You were inducted, and they do a really magnificent job, don't they?
Absolutely, and everybody was terrific, and it was such an. I got to tell you, I've been blessed with some awards and so on, but that one stands out to me. I'm very proud of that because it's my home. I have family in Rochester. My sister's there in Henrietta. I have dear friends and cousins and so on, and interesting, when I got inducted, I mean, so many people I hadn't seen, and I'm not exaggerating, 30 or 40 years showed up showed up for the ceremony, and I was so humbled and so grateful to be included in that. And like it goes without saying, the company is unbelievable. The Rochester musicians are world class, and I'm just proud to be associated.
And the Eastman Theater is just a gem. It's
gorgeous.
Absolutely,
and everything about it was great. Yeah, everything about it was great. And Nazareth College let me borrow the orchestra. I mean, I said, how many people can come to town and borrow an orchestra? But I borrowed the Nazareth Orchestra, and we performed some stuff I wrote, and it was great. It was just a great night. Great.
Well, one of the great things about Rochester is the rich musical history of Rochester and the different venues that we have available to you. And certainly, I say that people have woven their way into the culture of Rochester, participated in the way we are in our culture, and contributed in such ways that it brings a light to the area that a lot of other places don't have. And certainly your career and what you've done is extraordinary. And like I said, I love people that call themselves Rochester guys, even though they travel thousands of miles away. So thank you.
Absolutely. Well, I'm back there 3-4 times a year, and it's always a pleasure.
Yeah, and I hope to see you soon. Will you be here for the award ceremony for the Hall of Fame this spring?
Yeah, I think I'm going to try, and I'm also going to try and make it to the Jazz Fest for the first time.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't made it. I have always some conflict, but I'm going to really make an effort to do it this year. I'd love to be there for that, and I always get invited, and Mark Iacone invites me, and I almost never can make it. But, and I'll probably be there for the ceremony, and I'd love to meet you in person.
I'd love to do that, too. So thank you ever so much for coming on the show. It's been a delight to get to know you, and I wish you well. I hope to see you in the spring.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next week, 10 to 11, right here on News Radio WHAM 1180. Well, thanks for watching this YouTube. If you liked it, please like and share.